Hey everyone, welcome to the OklaRoots YouTube channel. In today's tutorial, we are going to revisit a pattern we've already done, but we have a new tool for it, so I want to make sure we have a video to go with that new tool. This is going to be a tutorial showing you how to use these templates right here, and these templates are used to make the curved clear bottom zip pouch. So we have made these on the channel before. They are so much fun. They have clear vinyl on the bottom, some regular vinyl up top, and then some binding around the side. Previously, we had a printable and some measurements. I had a lot of requests for templates for this to help you with pattern placement and things like that, so we do have the templates. So this is the large size. This is a great everyday size, especially good for school. So we have the large size here, and we have two templates. Now, there are actually 3, 4-ish pattern pieces. These two templates are going to help you with 3 of them. The other one is just a small rectangle for the zip tab. We also have a couple different options for that, which we'll go over in the tutorial today. But you can see this, well, maybe you can't see, it's clear, but this is the clear template for the large size. We also have the small size. I personally love the small size. The small size is so cute, and it's perfect for small crafts, small items, makeup brushes, pencils, things like that. This is a great size as well. I mean, here it is compared to the large. So it is, it is a small and a large. They are quite different sizes. So we're gonna have templates for the small size as well. And here, these ones are easier to see because they're darker. So here are some of the templates for the small size. Again, you're gonna use 2 templates to help you cut out 3 different pieces. So in today's tutorial, I'm gonna show you how to use those templates to cut everything out, and I will walk through building it all again. We've already done this once before, but we can go through it again. We have some fun new products we can use for the binding. I feel like I'm still trying to find alternate items for the binding because the binding in this project is the trickiest part. Depending on the material you're using, if you want to skip the binding, you definitely can. You can actually use some edge coating after you sew it if you'd like. I personally do like the look of the binding, but I'm still practicing on getting it just perfect. So if you're new to the OklaRoots YouTube channel, please consider clicking subscribe down below. If at any point you like this video, please give it a like. Any questions, comments, shout outs, anything at all, leave them down in the comment section. I will have timestamps. This should be a pretty quick video. It is a very quick make. I mean, you can see I have this one, and 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 then I actually have like a drawer underneath the table with a lot more. I keep making them, and I keep keeping them. Like, I can't part with these. Every time I make one, I'm like, I mean, and then I keep it. So I use them all the time. I mean, a lot of them are full. Like, this one's full of embroidery stuff. So if you have a clear vinyl that is not so see-through, it's also great for this project. We will discuss materials, things like that. My personal preference is to use a clear vinyl. It can be printed or totally clear for the bottom part here, and then a regular vinyl for the top. You can use quilt cotton for the lining. You can use waterproof canvas for the lining. You can use waterproof canvas for the top. You have a lot of wiggle room here. So we're going to go over that, and we're going to also talk about some different items you can use for the binding on the sides. All right, guys, let's get started. All right, for this pattern, I'm going to be using a vinyl for the top of the bags. I really do like the vinyl for the top, for the exterior, because it makes it all very durable. And then for the lining on the top, I'm gonna use a waterproof canvas. You can use a quilt cotton. So on this one here, I used a quilt cotton. If you do use a quilt cotton, you don't need to interface it with anything. You can just leave it as quilt cotton. You don't have to put any woven interfacing on it. But with waterproof canvas, water-resistant canvas, it gives it a little bit more beef, makes it a little bit more durable. I also think that if you use a waterproof or water-resistant canvas for the lining, that gives you more of an opportunity to edge coat if you don't want to add binding. So we'll take a look at this before we add the binding. And I do believe you could use the edge coating for the top and the whole bottom if you wanted to avoid the binding. I haven't tried it yet, but I do plan on doing that over the weekend. So here are the 2 template sets. This is the large, and then this is the small here. You have a top and a bottom. The top is going to be used for the exterior and the lining. Note that the exterior and lining are different sizes, so I'm going to show you how to use these little markings and these little notches here to help with that. Same thing with the small size. We have little notches on the side that are a little bit hard to see right now, but there are notches here and a dashed line to help you. All the templates are see-through. Some of them are darker, some of them are lighter, but they are all see-through. So the point of this is to help you with pattern placement. On the templates, we also have marked the seam allowance. Now let me see if I can really go through this top template here. We have the seam allowance marked on the top. That is considering a 3/8 inch seam allowance. We also have this very tight dash line. We have a big dash line, but we have a very tight dash line on the bottom here. That's your seam allowance for the exterior. I do not have the seam allowance for the lining marked on these templates. It's just the seam allowance for the exterior. This dash line on the bottom here is going to tell you where the stopping point is for the exterior top. The bottom of the template, the entire rectangle here, this is the size for the lining. So full template is lining. Template from the top to the notches and dashed line, that's for the exterior. Very tight dash lines on the top and bottom are seam allowances for the exterior. So I'm going to show you how we use this when we're doing pattern placement. For the bottom piece, we just have the seam allowance going along the top edge, and then I don't have anything else marked, because if you use binding, then you'll have some of it covered up. If you don't use binding, then you won't. So I'm not going to put anything else on the sides or bottom for the bottom. Same exact thing for the smaller version here. Also, let me mention, you do not need these templates. The pattern for this, the printable pattern for this, is completely free. It's on my website. I have a link down below. You don't need to buy the templates. You can make this bag for free using my templates and pattern on OklaRoots.com. So here's all the other stuff. Lots of clips, as always. I'm using this double-sided 1/8 of an inch tape. This is going to be helpful with the binding. Now, speaking of binding, this stuff is really cool. This is like a pre-made 1-inch wide, I think it's waterproof. Oh, I forgot what it's called. It's kind of like a waterproof canvas, but it's called something else. I'll have a link down below. It's not available very often, but I do know that other shops are also trying to come up with something like this. You could use pre-made binding that you get off of Amazon. You could use elastic. We've tried so many different things for binding on these bags over here. It is the trickiest part. Adding the binding is the hardest part of this entire process, but it does give it a really cool look. But it's going to take some practice. So today I'm going to be using this. It is 1 inch wide. It is a little big, but it works. Next, we have some marking tools. I have a vinyl marking tool that has like a silver ink, and then I have a heat erasing pen, and then I have a 1 inch by 6 inch ruler as always. For my top thread, I have a Tex 45 weight thread. For the bottom thread, this is just a Gutermann thread, but remember your bottom thread is going to show in the end. So make sure it's a thread color you like with all your material. For my needle today, I'm mixing it up a bit. This is a Schmetz Super Non-Stick needle, and it's a 9014. This is great when you're working with sticky vinyl. If you have clear, sticky vinyl that you're just having a hard time with, these needles are fantastic, because here's the thing. When you're sewing sticky vinyl, clear vinyl specifically, it likes to stick to the metal bed of your machine, so you know where the needle goes into the machine. That's metal usually. It likes to stick to that. It likes to stick to the presser foot. As the presser foot goes up and down, it's metal, it sticks to that as well. But even if you get all of these two pieces covered, the needle, it can stick to the needle. So as you lift up the needle, the whole project goes with it. A non-stick needle helps a lot with that. So I'm using a non-stick needle today. I have my bag tag as always, and then I have my zipper. The zipper size is going to depend on if you're making the small or the large. And then I have a zipper pull to go with it. And then my rotary cutter and some scissors, because we are going to be cutting this out today. So I'm going to be making the large today, but I'll be honest, it's going to be a little hard for you to see everything I'm doing. I'll do my best to put notes and graphics on the screen so you see everything. I just wanted to share with you, obviously the clear is completely see-through. The darker colors are also see-through, so you don't have to worry about not being able to use darker colors if that's what's available. Okay, so I can see where this long dash line is right here with my little notches on the sides, but the camera's not picking it up. So I just put a piece of double-sided tape running right along that line so that you guys can see it better. So there are little triangle notches cut out right at the side of this template, and then there's a long dash line running between them. So this rectangle here, from this tape here all the way to the top, that's my exterior front and back. The whole rectangle from top to bottom of the entire template, that is going to be for the lining. So I can line this up. I have a center mark right here, so I know where the center is. And then I also have marks on the top, and I also have a dash line right above this tape that I have here that lets me know where the seam allowance is. So if I have an image and I don't want it to get eaten up, I know not to have it go within those little dash line marks. All right, so I'm going to have it be just like this. So first thing I'm going to do is take a marking tool, and I'm just going to mark right where these triangles are. So it's like a little triangle that goes into the side of the template. I'm just gonna use my marking tool to go right in there, just marking a little notch so I know where it is. Now I'm gonna take my rotary cutter, and starting on the right side where that first notch is, I'm just gonna rotary cut up, and I cut off a lot. So, and then I'm gonna cut along the top, making sure you're always holding this down, and then I'm gonna cut along the side over here. There we go. Let me move some of these scraps out of the way. And so I didn't cut along the bottom yet because my bottom edge is being covered by my template. So I'm going to lift my template up, I'm going to rotate it, And I'm gonna make the notches and that long dash line line up with the top cut edge of my template. Okay, so I lined up that long dash line that's covered with tape right now so you can see, and little notches on the side with the top raw edge of my exterior. You can see the sides are lined up on the right and left as well. So now the bottom edge of my template, which is actually the top, but right now since it's upside down, it's the bottom, is lined up with those marks that we made where the triangles were. So I can just hold this in place and I can just run my rotary cutter right along the edge. And now I have a perfectly cut exterior piece that is the size I need it, just like that. So I'm going to repeat that for the other side. All right, so now I have my 2 exterior tops cut, so let's do the lining now. All right, so the lining is a lot easier. Measurements for these rectangles are also listed on the printable pattern, so if you want to just print that off and use a regular ruler to cut this out, you're more than welcome to do that. Okay, so now we have the lining and the exterior, and if you line up a lining and exterior cut, you can see the lining is a bit longer. There's a reason for that. We'll go over it as we work our way through the pattern. So I'm gonna set these to the side, and now I'm gonna grab my bottom cut and I'm gonna cut out my clear vinyl. Now this is my favorite clear vinyl. This is from By Annie. It is the perfect of everything. It is the perfect weight for clear vinyl. It is not super sticky, but very durable. I don't know. It's just the perfect clear vinyl. So if you're working with clear vinyl for the first time or you've struggled with it before, I do recommend trying the By Annie clear vinyl. It is so good. So how I use this is I actually draw on the backing paper. So it is a clear vinyl, but it has this paper backing. So I'm going to draw on the paper where the curves are, and I'm going to take my rotary cutter and I'm going to cut around the flat edges. I find it difficult to rotary cut around the curved edges. So I will usually just, it's kind of messy, but I just cut the straight bits, and then since I have the curved bits drawn, that's where I'll take my scissors and cut around those curved edges. And there we go. Now I have one cut out, and I'm going to repeat that with a second one. If you're not comfortable using your rotary cutter with these templates, don't feel like you need to. Just grab a pen and just trace it. I mean, that's normally what I do as well, especially if it's a template I haven't worked with much before. You don't want to risk anything slipping and getting hurt, so this might take a few extra seconds, but it could save you a trip to the hospital if you're not careful. So I just traced that, and now I'm just going to grab my scissors and just cut out right on that line. Alrighty, now I have both of my cuts done, and just so you see, this is a paper backing. Here, you can't see it. It's clear. It's clear, but you can't see it. There you go. So there we go. I've got my clear bottom done. I've got my 2 tops. I have my lining. The last thing I have to do are my zipper tabs. So you can use water-resistant canvas or quilt cotton for your zipper tabs. If you decide to do that, you want to cut them out at about 2 inches by 3 or 4 inches, 2 inches by 4 inches just to be safe. And then you're just going to double fold, like we did previously in the video, where you kind of fold the center, then you fold the long edges inside, wrong sides together, double fold it in half. We've done it lots. Or you can use vinyl, and if you decide to use vinyl, then you'll want to use a 1 inch by 3 inch or 4 inch cut. So I think I'm going to use vinyl today because I have some scraps of vinyl. I have these scraps here from when I was cutting it out. So I'm just going to cut a 1 inch by 3 inch cut of my scrap vinyl. There we go. And this will be my zipper tab. And finally, I need to cut my zipper tape. And since I'm making the large, this is going to be 10.5 inches long. And then the last bit we're going to need is our binding, whatever you're using. I would say have about a yard for the large size. That way you'll have some extra, but it'll be nice to have the extra. You could also use this binding for the zipper tabs if you'd like. Instead of the vinyl, you could just wrap the binding around the raw edge and top stitch that down. Just another option. All right, so let's get started by first prepping our zipper. When I'm using zipper tape, the first thing I like to do, no matter if I'm going to be covering the edges or not, is melt down the edge of my zipper tape. Zipper tape is usually made from a plastic thread, so it can fray very easily, and when you light it on fire, it actually just melts. It doesn't catch on fire or anything like that. It just melts. And this is gonna seal it so we don't have to worry about it fraying over time. Just protects the zipper for use over time. So now I'm gonna grab my zipper tab, and because I didn't double fold this, here's a scrap. I'll show you double folding. If you were using a piece of quilt cotton, you would want a 2 inch by 4 inch piece of quilt cotton. You're gonna fold it in half, wrong sides together first, lining up the long edges, and then open it up so you can see that crease in the center. And then you're gonna fold the long edges in towards that center crease, both of them just like that. And then you're gonna fold it in half again, just like a hot dog bun. So you have a folded edge over here, and then you have a double folded edge over here, nice and neat. This is gonna be fine if you're using quilt cotton or waterproof canvas. If you're using vinyl, this is very thick, and it's just not necessary. So for vinyl, I decide I'm just gonna fold it in half once. So I'm gonna fold the long edges, wrong sides together to meet like that. And then I'm gonna take my zipper, make sure you have your zipper pull on there, and I'm going to tuck in the end of my zipper tape into that midpoint mark and just fold the vinyl around the edge and clip in place. And then I'm just gonna bring up the other side. I like to have the zipper coils on the same side, so when I top stitch, the top stitching will be on the top each time. So I'm just gonna tuck the opposite edge in there and clip in place. Now I'm gonna sew along this innermost edge at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So once you have the zipper tab sewn on, just trim down the edges so that they line up with the edge of the zipper tape. This will separate them as well. There you go, now your zipper is all ready to go. Now let's prep our zipper and our 2 exterior pieces. So find the midpoint on your zipper tape by just folding it in half and then pinch where the middle is. You can use a marking tool. You can also use scissors. I'm gonna use scissors. However, we need to make sure we do one more thing after we snip with the scissors. Remember, zipper tape frays. So once you have your little triangle snipped to mark the midpoint, grab a lighter and just gently melt that raw bit so that way it won't fray over time. I'm gonna do the same thing with my top exterior cuts. Okay, so whichever panel you're gonna have be the front, grab that one and lay it right side up. Grab your zipper, and when the zipper closes, it should be going towards the left. The pull should go to the left. So see, closed, left, open, right. Pull goes to the left when closed, and then take your zipper and lay it right side down. So coil side down against the right side of your front panel, and line up the midpoint marks on the exterior panel and the zipper. Now the zipper is not the same length as the exterior panel. It should not reach the edges. Okay, now I'm gonna baste along this clipped edge at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Once you have that basted on, grab one of your lining panels and lay your lining panel right side down against the back side of the zipper and just line it up with the top edge of the exterior. It should be the same size. All right, now let's sew along this top edge at either a 3/8 inch seam allowance or 1/4 inch seam allowance, whichever one you're more comfortable with. Just make sure that whichever seam allowance you choose for this side, you do it for the other side as well. Once you have that sewn, take your lining and let's finger press it back and then pull all of it wrong sides together. So exterior and lining are wrong sides together. The lining overextends the bottom of the exterior. That's how it's supposed to be. So don't worry about that. It's not supposed to line up with the bottom edge. So I'm just gonna finger press down this seam right here to get it as flat as possible and straight. That's the goal. You don't want a wavy zipper, so nice and straight. There we go. So now I'm just gonna top stitch along this folded edge up here at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, so now we have one side attached. We're gonna repeat that for the other side. I'll walk you through it. So grab your back top exterior vinyl and lay it right side up and make sure that the top edge where the midpoint mark is on top. And then take your unit with the zipper and flip it so that it's right side down. Zipper is right side down. Line up the midpoint mark with your zipper with that midpoint mark on the exterior material and clip there first and then clip along the whole edge. Once again, the zipper does not reach all the way to the sides. It's not supposed to. Okay, now we're just gonna baste along this clipped edge at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now lay your unit so the zipper is wrong side up and grab your remaining lining panel and lay it right side down on the back of that zipper and line it up with that top edge that you just basted in place and clip together. And now I'm gonna sew along this clipped edge at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. If you used a 1/4 inch seam allowance to sew this on the other side, then use that seam allowance. Once you have that sewn together, flip the lining and exterior panels so that they are wrong sides together. It's easier if you zip it up completely and then just finger press it. If you want to grab an iron, just make sure you iron from the non-vinyl side. But I find just finger pressing with this material works just fine. There we go. And now I'm going to top stitch along this folded edge by the zipper at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, after I have them both added, that's when I like to add my bag tag. So I'm just going to center it on the front panel. Front panel for me is the panel that is showing when the zipper pull is closed and on the left. I like to grab some double-sided tape when I'm attaching my bag tags. So now I'm just going to center this on my panel just like that. And now I'll top stitch around all 4 edges of my tag at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so the top of the bag is done. Now we have to add the bottom. I know this is kind of a weird way to construct this, but it's how I do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach the bottom clear vinyl to the exterior front first. So I'm going to flip the lining out of the way. I only want this exterior panel. I'm going to take the straight top edge of my clear vinyl and flip it so that the rounded edge is up towards the zipper and the clear edge is against the straight edge on the bottom. If you have a printed vinyl, it will be the top of the vinyl right sides together with the exterior. And then just clip these together. Now I'm going to sew along this bottom clipped edge at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Remember, it's just the vinyl and the clear vinyl. There's no lining involved in this. If you find yourself struggling to sew this with your presser foot getting stuck on that clear vinyl, take some just regular Scotch tape and tape the bottom of your presser foot. You can just tape the whole bottom of your presser foot and then just cut a little tiny snip so the needle can go in and out. But other than that, the needle just needs to be able to go through the tape. That's it. So you can put this all over it and that will help prevent the sticking. So now I'm gonna flip my clear vinyl down and the seam is gonna go behind the top vinyl piece. I'm just gonna press with my fingers. Once again, the lining is out of the way. I'm just dealing with these 2 pieces of vinyl. So now that I have the seam pressed and the lining is still out of the way, I'm going to top stitch right along this edge at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance on the top panel vinyl side. Okay, you have your exterior top and your vinyl top stitched down. Let's flip it over and look at the back side. Now grab some double-sided tape and we're just going to run it right along that seam. So I am running it above the stitching line, but just anywhere, as long as it's not showing in the clear opening part, as long as it's on the seam. And then we can remove the paper. And now take down your lining, and it doesn't matter what material you're using, but you're gonna fold the bottom edge back. So fold the bottom edge wrong sides together and just carefully line it up so that the fold matches up with the fold on the front. So matches up with the bottom edge of the exterior vinyl. And the goal is to not have this peeking out on the front. So I'm just going to gently fold this down, press it with my fingers. And this is why I leave the lining quite a bit taller than the exterior, because it might be easier for you to fold this if you have a good amount of, extra material on the bottom here. So just get it as good as you can, then flip it over. And if you see a lot of it peeking down underneath this edge here, then you can go back, fold it some more. The double-sided tape isn't super glue. You can pick it up and fix it. There we go. Okay, so once that's set up, we're gonna go to the sewing machine, and now we're going to top stitch at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So it's gonna be an 1/8 of an inch above this first top stitching. That's going to hold the lining in place. So there we go. So now we're gonna repeat that with the other side. So let's flip this around. Once again, move the lining out of the way. Grab your clear vinyl, remove the backing paper, and lay it right side down, right sides together with the exterior top, and lining up the long straight edges. And then let's just clip them together. And now let's sew these together at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. I'm going to show you how to use this tape. Just cut off a good amount. Move your thread out of the way. I like to just smush it up there like that. There we go. And then I just use some little scissors here to get in there and clip out a little hole. There we go. So putting the tape on the presser foot makes it a lot easier to sew. So now we're just gonna flip this so that the seam goes behind the top panel and then finger press it. Again, keeping the lining out of the way. And now we're gonna go sew along the top panel at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, let's flip this over, flip the lining out of the way. Let's grab some double-sided tape, and we're just going to lay the double-sided tape over that seam allowance. So you shouldn't see it on the front at all. And let's take down the lining and fold the bottom edge wrong sides together. And just try to get it to fold to meet the bottom edge, because you can see through the clear bottom. And if it helps, you just have it try to fold to meet up the very bottom row of stitches. It's okay if when you fold this, it's just a little bit higher than what you can see on the front panel. That's why we top stitch it at a 1/4 inch seam allowance instead of an 1/8 of an inch, because that way you're not going to miss the fold. You will still catch it. Okay, just give it a good finger press, flip it to the front, make sure you're happy with it. It's not peeking out on the bottom if you don't want it to be. And now let's top stitch along this top edge at a 1/4 inch seam allowance this time, and it's going to hold the lining in place. All right, here you go. You're pretty much done. Now, I've had some questions before saying, could we just sew it right sides together like this and then flip it out? Yeah, you could do that. I'm not sure how well it'll hold the shape. I haven't tried it, but you could try it. You definitely could. I do plan to try that as well. I'm just gonna cut down these edges of lining peeking out over here on the sides. But I like to just fold it wrong sides together, so I'm looking at it just like it's gonna be in the end. First bits I match up are the bottom seams here of our top panels. Match those up so they line up and clip together. Do this on both sides. And then I work my way up the side until I get to the top edge here. And then do the same thing on the other side. This top panel is the one that you want to get lined up correct mostly. Any little discrepancies on the bottom edge here are no big deal. We'll be able to cut them down. But the top here is what we want to be pretty lined up. All right, so once that's good, then you can just clip along the clear bottom panels as well. They should come together pretty nicely. All right, now I'm gonna sew along the entire clipped edge at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I like to use a zipper foot here because these tabs do make it pretty bulky. So a zipper foot is gonna allow you to get close to it without having to worry about your presser foot getting all wonky because of the mountain over here and the valley down here. All right, so here we have it all sewn together. Technically, this is done. It can be used like this. You could edge coat these edges, just make sure you clean them up a little bit, and then you could put some edge coating along all the edges and just leave it like this. That's fine. I like to add binding to it, even though it is pretty challenging. So before we get to the binding, this is just my tip. You're gonna have a lot of these little, I call them pigtails. They're like little tiny pieces of thread just sticking up from different areas. I like to clean those up. Don't leave those on a finished product, because all you need to do is grab a lighter and melt them down. If you used waterproof canvas, you can also use your lighter to kind of melt down the raw edges of the waterproof canvas. Now, I used this type of binding in 2 different ways. You can use it like this, where it's pretty chunky, which is pretty much just taking the binding and then folding it in half around the edge and top stitching it on. This is going to be the easiest way to attach this binding, in my opinion. Or you could do it so that it's a little bit of a tighter binding. This is gonna go like this, and it's a little bit more challenging. You're gonna take your binding and you're gonna lay it right side down on your bag. And you're gonna clip it in place around the entire bag and then sew it down at about a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Then you're going to wrap it up and around and over the entire bag and then top stitch it in place. This gives you a very nice, clean, crisp, tiny binding. It looks really cool, but it is very difficult because the thickness up here is a lot different than the thickness down here. It's gonna be easy to accomplish that look on the clear vinyl side. However, up here with all these layers, it's much more difficult, and I found myself top stitching and not catching the back a lot. So I'm gonna show you the easier way to do it. If you wanted to do it this way, just make sure you trim your seam allowance down, especially up here where it's really bulky. Trim it down so it's just, you know, skinnier over here, and so you have more room to wrap it around. So make sure you have some clips. And then I like to take my binding, and the first thing I'm gonna do is take the short edge and I'm gonna fold it down by about a 1/4 inch wrong sides together. This just is so I don't have a raw edge on the top. It doesn't really matter, but it's personal preference. So if you wanna make this a little bit easier, I'm gonna use some double-sided tape here, and I'm going to tape it right along the edge of the back of the bag. So right along the edge, all the way around. Okay, so now I'm going to pull off the tape in sections. So I'm just starting with this top bit here. I'm gonna grab my binding. I have that short edge folded, wrong sides together. I like to fold it in half just a bit so I can kind of get an idea of where the middle is. If you want to make sure this looks nice and neat, you can actually come in here and just trim off the little corners of your binding that's folded back. That way those don't poke out in the top. And then I'm just gonna hug this right around the edge of my bag. Now remember, I have tape on the back but not on the front, so I'm gonna also use clips. And then I'm just gonna go around the whole bag, removing a little bit of tape and then hugging the binding right around that raw edge. Take your time with this. So once I get to the other end, I like to just let the binding overextend by about 1/2 inch or so, and then trim it. And then I'll once again trim off the corners. And then I'll fold the binding down so that it comes just slightly above the top edge of my vinyl, and just hug it around that raw edge and clip in place. Okay, so we did this while looking at the back side. So now let's flip this over and look at the front. And if you have any of the back binding way off and showing in the front, make sure you adjust it. See, I like to put the tape on the back because whenever I top stitch this, I'll be top stitching it from the front of the bag. So I have more control and I can see what's going on the front. I can't really see what's going on the back, so I need to know that the back's not moving around. So the tape helps keep it there. Okay, so now we're gonna go to the sewing machine and top stitch this in place. You can top stitch it 1/4 inch in, or you can top stitch it 1/8 inch from the raw edge. I prefer just kind of go right down the center of the binding, inching a little bit closer towards the raw edge, but not too close because I don't want to miss catching the binding on the back. All right, there we go. Honestly, it looks pretty good. That looks actually pretty good. I like it. I approve. So I'm just going to once again grab my lighter and just trim down the little tails at the beginning and the end of my binding. And now our little pouch is done. How cute is that? And it's so quick, especially once you get the hang of it, it's very quick. All right, guys, what do you think? How cute are these? I can make a million. I might actually make a million because I can't seem to stop making them. I love the little one too. I love the little one so much. I hope you try both sizes. Like I said, the templates are going to be available on Shop OklaRoots. If you're looking for them and they're sold out, just make sure you enter your email in the shop site. I'll have a link down below and you'll be notified when they are restocked. However, you don't need to buy the acrylic templates in order to make this. I have a printable template you can print off with all the measurements and everything like that. It's on OklaRoots.com. I have a link down in the description of this video. It's completely free. So make this bag however you'd like. If it's easier to use templates, grab those. The templates are great if you're gonna be making a lot of them. If you wanna just try it out first with the printable, try it out with the printable. But if you make these, please let me know. Either email your pictures to me or tag me on social media. I'm at OklaRoots everywhere. I want to see. I love these so much. And if you play with the binding and you have some suggestions for the best way to bind these, let me know. Because I am determined to find the easiest, most professional look to this binding. So I hope you enjoyed sewing with me today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a great day. Have a fantastic rest of your week. Get out there and make something. Bye, guys.